We are anonymous, not a collective of hackers hiding in basements, not a myth whispered in dark corners of the internet, but a voice that rises when silence becomes complicity. We speak when power tries to rewrite reality. We watch when the comfortable choose to look away. Tonight, we bring you the unfiltered truth about a moment that shattered the carefully constructed illusion Donald Trump has spent years building with his favorite network, Fox News. What unfolded was not just another political spat or manufactured controversy. It was the raw exposure of a man whose ego is so fragile that a single segment of truth on the very channel that built him up caused a complete public meltdown. The moment happened on Fox News' panel show, The Five, a program that typically serves as a safe space for conservative talking points and MAGA-friendly narratives. But on this particular day, something different occurred. Jessica Tarlov, one of the few liberal voices given airtime on the network, did what so few have the courage to do in that building. She spoke an inconvenient truth directly into the camera, challenging the glaring hypocrisy that has become the foundation of Trump's political movement. She addressed the selective outrage that erupts from the MAGA world whenever violence occurs in America, pointing out how the response dramatically shifts depending on who pulls the trigger. When a shooter's background can be twisted to fit a narrative about the left, about immigrants, about anyone outside the MAGA circle, the response is immediate and aggressive. Conservative commentators rush to label it domestic terrorism. They demand action, policy changes, and accountability. Social media explodes with angry posts and calls for justice. But when the evidence points in the opposite direction, when the person responsible turns out to be wrapped in the very symbols and slogans of the MAGA movement itself, something changes. The outrage evaporates. The calls for accountability go silent. Suddenly, it becomes a tragedy not to be politicized, a mental health issue to be handled quietly, a lone wolf incident with no broader implications. Tarlov brought receipts to this conversation. She displayed a chart from Axios that had been circulating among MAGA influencers, people like Vance and allies of Charlie Kirk. They'd been sharing this data gleefully, using it as supposed proof that left-wing violence was on the rise in America. The chart did show an increase in certain incidents attributed to the left. What these influencers conveniently ignored, what they deliberately cropped out of their social media posts, was the second part of that same chart. The data clearly demonstrated that right-wing violence, when measured by frequency, lethality, and impact, was statistically and significantly higher. This is not opinion. This is documented fact, verified by multiple sources, including the Government Accountability Office and the Center for Strategic and International Studies. She went further, bringing up a recent tragedy that had been met with deafening silence from the usual voices of outrage. In Michigan, a man drove up to a Mormon church, set the building on fire, and then opened fire with an AR-15, killing 5 people in cold blood. His truck was covered in American flags. In his backyard, investigators found Trump-Vance campaign flags displayed prominently. This was not a secret. This was not hidden information. The evidence was photographed, documented, and reported. Yet from the MAGA world there was virtually no response, no tweets from Trump, no statements from his surrogates, no prime-time segments on Fox demanding answers or calling for action. Tarlov posed a simple question that cut through all the noise. If the situation had been reversed, if a shooter had displayed a Biden-Harris flag or any symbol associated with the left, would the response have been the same? Would Kash Patel, Trump's loyalist appointee, have remained silent? Would Fox News have moved on to other stories within a news cycle? Everyone watching knew the answer. The hypocrisy was not subtle. It was glaring, undeniable, and Tarlov was saying it out loud on their own network. The moment she finished speaking, something remarkable happened in the studio. The MAGA commentators sitting beside her, the ones who usually dominate these conversations with confident talking points and rehearsed outrage, went quiet. Not the strategic quiet of someone preparing a counter-argument, but the uncomfortable silence of people who know they have been caught. The camera captured their faces, frozen in that awkward space where spin meets reality and finds no way forward. It was a rare crack in the carefully managed facade of Fox News, a brief glimpse of honesty breaking through the propaganda machinery. Then Donald Trump saw the clip. The explosion was predictable, yet still revealing in its intensity. Within hours, He was on Truth Social, the platform he created to ensure his voice would never be moderated or fact-checked, posting a series of furious messages. He attacked Fox News for betraying their audience. He called Jessica Tarlov a disgrace, accused her of spreading fake news, and claimed the entire segment was designed specifically to make him look bad. The irony was almost too thick to process. This is a man who has built a career on mocking others, who has publicly insulted Gold Star families, called fallen soldiers, losers, and suckers, and shown open contempt for anyone who disagrees with him. Yet here he was, performing outrage at being held accountable for his own behavior. The pattern becomes even clearer when you examine how Trump responded to the assassination of Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota House Speaker, who was gunned down in her own home. When asked at a press conference whether it would have been appropriate to lower the flags to half-staff in her honor, given all the elaborate tributes his administration had arranged for Charlie Kirk, Trump's response was telling. He said he was not familiar with the case, then added that if the governor of Minnesota had asked him to lower the flags, he would have done so, but nobody asked. His explanation continued with a complaint that if he lowered the flag for everyone who died, it would never fly at full height. There was no empathy in his voice, no acknowledgement of a public servant murdered while serving her community. Just bureaucratic excuses and a tone of mild annoyance at being questioned. This is the same man now claiming to be offended that someone would point out his hypocrisy. The contradiction would be laughable if it were not so dangerous. Trump does not actually care about the victims of violence. What he cares about is controlling the narrative around that violence. When the story can be weaponized against his political enemies, he amplifies it relentlessly. When the truth undermines his narrative, he either ignores it completely or attacks anyone who brings it up. His reaction to the Fox News segment was not about defending himself against false accusations. It was about reasserting control over a network he believes belongs to him. Fox News has functioned for years as Trump's most reliable amplifier, turning his talking points into headline news, his conspiracy theories into investigative specials, and his grievances into national conversations. The relationship has been mutually beneficial. Trump gets a platform that treats him as infallible, and Fox gets ratings from an audience that worships him. But that arrangement only works when everyone plays their assigned role. When Jessica Tarlov stepped outside that script and introduced actual data, actual context, and actual accountability into the conversation, she disrupted the entire system. Trump's meltdown was not just about one segment or one commentator. It was about the existential threat of losing control over his own image. He needs Fox News to need him. He built his political identity on the idea that he is a victim of unfair media, that every outlet except Fox is lying about him. But what happens when even Fox allows truth to slip through? What happens when the mirror he relies on to reflect his preferred version of reality starts showing cracks? The answer is what we witnessed. Rage, insults, accusations of betrayal. Trump called for boycotts, suggested Fox was becoming just like the mainstream media, and hinted that his supporters should abandon the network. His followers echoed the sentiment, flooding social media with angry posts about Fox going woke, about needing to find new sources that would stay loyal. The message was clear. Loyalty means never questioning, never fact-checking, never allowing inconvenient truths to interfere with the narrative. J.D. Vance and Kash Patel quickly mobilized to do damage control. They appeared on various programs pushing the same scripted talking points. They called for unity, not division. They said the Michigan shooter clearly had mental health issues and that politicizing the tragedy was inappropriate. But their sudden concern for not politicizing violence only appeared when the political implications were uncomfortable for them. When violence can be blamed on the left, they have no problem making it political. When it cannot, they suddenly become advocates for nuance and compassion. Some voices on the right even attempted to claim that the Trump-Vance flag found in the Michigan shooter's yard actually said, "Stop Trump," trying to rewrite reality itself to fit their comfort zone. The mental gymnastics required to make that argument would be impressive if they were not so transparently desperate. Imagine for a moment if the situation had been reversed. If someone with a Biden flag or any progressive symbol had committed an act of mass violence, Fox News would run the story non-stop for weeks. It would become the defining narrative of the news cycle, proof of the dangers of left-wing rhetoric. But when the truth points the other way, suddenly memory gets short and outrage gets quiet. Jessica Tarlov's contribution to this conversation was not radical or extreme. She simply asked for consistency. If you care about violence, care about it every time. If you believe rhetoric has consequences, apply that standard universally. If mental health is your explanation for mass shootings, then advocate for mental health funding and gun reform consistently, not just when it is politically convenient. These are basic standards of intellectual honesty, yet in the current political environment, they are treated as acts of rebellion. Trump's response revealed something deeper than political disagreement. It showed a man who cannot tolerate even the smallest challenge to his authority, even from a network that has spent years building him up. He does not want debate. He wants obedience. He does not want journalism. He wants propaganda. And when he does not get it, he lashes out with the fury of someone who believes the world owes him constant validation. The broader context here matters. This tantrum did not happen in isolation. It is part of a pattern that has defined Trump's entire approach to media and truth. Any outlet that fact-checks him becomes fake news. Any journalist who asks hard questions becomes an enemy of the people. Any former ally who breaks from the script becomes a traitor. He has said repeatedly that the press is the enemy of the American people, a statement so dangerous that historians have compared it to authoritarian leaders throughout history. When you delegitimize the very concept of independent journalism, when you train your followers to reject any information that does not come from approved sources, you are not building a political movement. You are building a cult of personality. And the consequences are real. While Trump rages on social media about being disrespected, actual violence continues to tear through American communities. Churches become crime scenes. Schools hold active shooter drills. Political leaders are assassinated in their homes. And through it all, Trump offers no solutions, no policy proposals, no leadership, just anger, blame, and an endless stream of grievances. He promised Americans he would fix everything, that he alone could solve the nation's problems. But what has actually been fixed? Healthcare costs continue to climb. The cost of living crushes the middle class. Infrastructure crumbles. Divisions deepen. Yet he still demands applause, still insists he is the victim, still refuses to accept any responsibility. When asked recently whether the wave of political violence had changed his thinking on gun reform, his team offered the same tired talking points about protecting the Second Amendment. No new ideas, no acknowledgement that the current approach is not working, just rehearsed lines designed to satisfy his base without requiring him to actually do anything. They mentioned potentially considering red flag laws, but refused to provide any timeline or specifics. Because to Trump, every tragedy is a press opportunity, not a problem to solve. It is a chance to perform outrage, to point fingers, to shift blame, but never to lead. This is why the Fox News moment mattered so much. For one brief segment, the protective bubble around Trump popped. The network that exists to flatter him allowed a voice of accountability to speak. And his reaction showed exactly who he is. Not a strong leader unfairly attacked by biased media, but a deeply insecure man who cannot handle even mild criticism from friendly territory. The meltdown was not strategic. It was not calculated. It was pure emotional reaction from someone whose entire identity depends on never being questioned. We have seen this pattern repeat throughout his career. Every time a journalist challenges him, he attacks their credibility. Every time a court rules against him, he claims the system is rigged. Every time an ally defects, he calls them weak or disloyal. Because in Trump's world, power is not about service or competence. It is about dominance and submission. You are either with him completely, or you are his enemy. There is no middle ground, no room for honest disagreement, no space for facts that complicate his preferred narrative. Fox News helped create this monster. For years, they amplified his lies, normalized his behavior, and gave him a platform to build his movement. They turned conspiracy theories into primetime programming and grievance into a business model. But now that relationship is showing strain. Some anchors, perhaps exhausted by the effort required to defend the indefensible, have started asking harder questions. Some segments, like the one with Jessica Tarlov, have allowed inconvenient truths to slip through. And Trump, who believes loyalty should be absolute and unconditional, views every instance of independence as betrayal. The tragedy is not just political, it is human. Real people are suffering while this performance continues. Families bury loved ones lost to senseless violence. Communities try to heal from trauma. Veterans struggle with mental health crises that go unaddressed. And instead of leadership, they get tweets. Instead of policy, they get outrage. Instead of solutions, they get a man screaming about how unfairly he is being treated by a network that spent years treating him like royalty. This meltdown was not about one segment. It was about control slipping, about the carefully constructed illusion starting to crack. Trump needs to be the center of every story, the victim of every slight, the hero of every narrative. When reality refuses to cooperate, when the facts do not align with his version of events, he does not adjust his understanding. He attacks reality itself. He calls truth fake news and demands that his followers choose between him and their own eyes. We are anonymous. We do not chase headlines or manufacture outrage. We watch, we document, and we reveal what power tries to hide. This moment with Fox News matters because it shows the fragility beneath the bluster, the insecurity beneath the bravado. Donald Trump did not lose his temper because he was unfairly attacked. He lost it because for once, even his own propaganda machine could not protect him from accountability. The mask slipped, and what showed underneath was not strength, but fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of losing control, fear that the empire built on lies might finally collapse under the weight of truth. The more that truth seeps through the cracks, the louder he will scream to drown it out. But we will be here, watching, documenting, and ensuring that no amount of noise can permanently silence what needs to be heard. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Wait for us.